The light here does not fall so much as it settles, finding the narrow gap between the brick and the glass. It is a thin slice of a world, a corridor where the air feels heavier, cooler, and entirely still. The moss between the pavers has claimed its territory, a soft green velvet that muffled the sound of a footfall long ago. There is a sense that the walls are leaning in, not to crowd, but to protect this sliver of ground from the rush of the street beyond. The bamboo stands as a silent sentry, its leaves frozen in an invisible grip, casting long, thin shadows that barely move as the sun climbs. Inside the house, the glass reflects a twin version of this garden, doubling the enclosure and making the small space feel like an infinite, quiet loop. Nothing here is asking for attention. The concrete is cool to the touch. The air carries the faint, damp scent of earth that never fully dries. It is a place where the clock seems to have stopped, leaving only the steady, unblinking presence of the walls and the plants that grow between them. Here, the world is reduced to a few feet of space, and that is enough. The silence is a physical weight, pressing gently against the glass, holding the stillness in place. This is a room without a ceiling, held together by the dark vertical lines of the timber. The sun moves across the trellis, dropping a grid of light and shadow onto the grass below, a slow-motion game of geometry that repeats every day. The bench is stone, cold and permanent, positioned to look at nothing but the opposite wall. There is no wind to stir the air in this deep pocket of the home. The enclosure is absolute. It feels as though the house has wrapped its arms around this patch of earth, keeping the noise of the neighborhood at bay. The grass is a deep, vivid green, undisturbed by footsteps, perfectly level. The shadows of the trellis slats grow longer, stretching toward the bench, reaching out in a slow, silent crawl. To sit here would be to disappear for a moment, to become part of the stillness. The wood of the fence holds the warmth of the day, radiating it back into the small void. There is no movement in the periphery, no flickering leaves, just the steady transition of light into shade. The scale of the space makes every detail significant: texture of the stone, the grain of the wood, the way the light catches the very tips of the blades of grass. It is a captive piece of the outdoors, refined and hushed. The white walls catch the midday sun and bounce it back, filling the terrace with a bright, clean glow that leaves nowhere for shadows to hide. The space is small, tight, and perfectly contained. The black metal of the table and chairs provides a sharp, graphic contrast against the pale stone of the floor. The olive tree stands in the center, its silver-green leaves perfectly still, as if painted against the white backdrop. There is a profound sense of privacy here, a feeling of being at the bottom of a well of light. The exterior world is visible only as a square of blue sky far above. The furniture is empty, yet it doesn't feel lonely. It feels expectant, or perhaps simply content in its solitude. The air is warm and motionless. Every surface is hard and clean, reflecting a desire for order and calm. The silence is amplified by the height of the walls, which block out the hum of the distant city. The terracotta pot is the only hint of warmth in the color palette, a grounded, earthy anchor for the airy brightness of the scene. It is a miniature sanctuary, a place where the boundaries are clear and the distractions are none. The light stays long here, lingering on the white plaster, turning the small terrace into a glowing vessel of quietude. The path turns a sharp corner, disappearing behind the bulk of the house. The dark slate chips are flat and matte, swallowing the light rather than reflecting it. Along the edge, the ferns are a riot of stationary green fronds, huddled together in the cool shadow of the chimney stack. The light that does reach this corner is broken and soft, filtered through leaves that exist somewhere out of frame. There is a dampness here, a hidden quality that makes the air feel thick with the scent of wet stone. The concrete planter is smooth and gray, a brutalist contrast to the delicate, feathery texture of the plants. The enclosure is tight. The brick wall of the chimney feels massive and ancient, providing a verticality that emphasizes the narrowness of the ground. No birds move through the fronds. No breeze disturbs the slate. It is a secret corner of a residence, a place that exists only for itself. The turn in the path suggests a journey that is only a few steps long, yet in this stillness, those few steps feel significant. The dappled light moves so slowly it is impossible to see it happening. The ferns remain draped in their shadows, heavy and silent, filling the L-shaped void with a quiet, persistent life that requires nothing from the world outside. The transition from the kitchen to the deck is seamless, a short step into the cooling air of evening. The wooden boards are narrow and run toward the edge of the property, where a vertical wall of succulents rises to meet the eye. The plants are thick and waxy, arranged in tight clusters that create a living tapestry of muted greens and purples. They do not sway. The gray cushions on the bench are plump and undisturbed, catching the warm amber light spilling out from the kitchen window. This light cuts a sharp rectangle across the deck, highlighting the grain of the timber. The rest of the garden is falling into a soft, blue shadow. The enclosure is provided by the height of the succulent wall and the bulk of the house itself, creating a pocket of warmth and domesticity. There is no sound of dishes or conversation, only the visual evidence of a home at rest. The vertical garden brings the earth up to eye level, making the small footprint of the deck feel lush and expansive in its detail. The air is starting to hold the evening chill, but the glow from the window suggests a lingering interior heat. Everything is poised in the moment between day and night, held in a state of perfect domestic equilibrium. The laurel hedges rise like green walls, thick and impenetrable, forming a perfect circle around the small cobblestone clearing. The mist clings to the glossy leaves, turning them into 1,000 tiny mirrors for the weak morning sun. In the center, the dark green chair sits low to the ground, its wide arms waiting. The cobblestones are uneven and damp, their rounded surfaces catching the light in a way that makes the ground look like a bed of gray pearls. There is no view out and no view in. The world is entirely contained within this green ring. The silence is absolute, muffled by the density of the hedges. The mist softens the edges of the chair, making it seem as though it is emerging from the garden itself. There is a sense of deep, unhurried time here. The chair does not move. The leaves do not rustle. The morning light is silver and flat, casting no harsh shadows, only a general, pervasive brightness that slowly burns through the fog. It is a room made of plants, a hidden cell of peace at the edge of a house. The enclosure is so complete that the rest of the world feels like a distant memory. Every leaf is a barrier, every stone a boundary, holding the stillness in a tight, green embrace. The golden hour light strikes the brickwork of the opposite wing, turning the garden into a warm, glowing canyon. The balcony is narrow, just wide enough for the rows of terracotta pots that line the railing. The lavender is in full bloom, but it does not move. The purple spikes are rigid and still in the heavy evening air. A small wooden stool sits at the end of the row, its surface worn and smooth. The black railings divide the view into vertical segments, framing the texture of the bricks across the gap. This is a garden of heights, perched above the ground but still enclosed by the architecture of the home. The air is likely scented with lavender, though the visual focus is on the stillness of the plants and the intensity of the light. The shadows of the pots are long and thin, stretching across the balcony floor toward the stool. The space is intimate and functional, a private ledge for observation. There is no wind at this height, just the steady, descending warmth of the sun as it dips below the roofline. The bricks across the way hold the heat, glowing like embers. The lavender remains a sea of stationary purple, held in the amber light of the day's end, a small, elevated sanctuary of color and calm. The cedar fence provides a warm, orange-toned backdrop to the cool gray of the concrete spheres. The ground is a uniform layer of dark gravel, each stone small and sharp, creating a texture that feels intentional and clean. The ornamental grasses in the spheres are tall and tan, their blades arching over the edges in a frozen cascade. Under the overcast sky, there are no shadows, only a soft, even light that emphasizes the shapes and materials of the space. The yard is narrow, a functional transition zone turned into a gallery of form. The fence is tall enough to block out everything but the very tops of nearby trees, which are as still as the grass. There is a rhythmic quality to the three spheres, a repetition that brings a sense of order to the small enclosure. The air is still and neutral. The gravel looks as though it has never been walked upon. The concrete of the planters is smooth and unblemished, a modern touch against the natural grain of the cedar. It is a space of pure geometry and hushed tones, where the lack of activity is the primary feature. The enclosure feels protective, a barrier against the complexity of the world, reducing the environment to a few perfect shapes and a floor of dark stone. The atrium is a glass heart inside the house, a transparent box that holds a landscape in miniature. The white sand is raked into perfect, concentric circles around a single, jagged dark rock that sits like an island in a frozen sea. The light comes from above, a flat and colorless illumination that highlights every grain of sand and every ripple of the rake. Through the glass, The interior of the home is visible, but it is secondary to the stillness of the garden. The enclosure is total for glass walls that separate the house from its own center. There is no wind here, no weather, just the permanent arrangement of stone and sand. The rock is textured and ancient-looking, a sharp contrast to the pristine, artificial perfection of the raked patterns. The silence is not just heard, it is seen in the lack of movement and the precision of the lines. It is a garden that exists to be looked at, a focal point of absolute calm. The air inside the atrium is trapped, as still as the sand itself. The house revolves around this small, quiet void, a place where time is measured not in hours, but in the lack of change. The glass reflects the patterns of the sand, creating a layered, crystalline world of white and gray. The ivy has moved slowly over the iron gate, its tendrils weaving through the bars and locking it in place. The gate leads nowhere, or perhaps it once did, but now it is part of the wall, a decorative ghost. The brick floor is mossy and uneven, the red of the clay muted by years of shade. In the center of the nook, a stone birdbath holds a circle of perfectly still water, reflecting the green of the ivy and the pale blue of the sky. The afternoon light is soft and angled, catching the edges of the leaves but leaving the corners of the space in deep shadow. This is a corner of the garden that feels discovered rather than designed. The enclosure is provided by the high brick walls and the density of the climbing plants. There is a sense of weight here, the weight of time and the weight of the silence. No birds come to the water. Nothing moves. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and old metal. The gate, with its intricate iron scrolls, is a reminder of a different scale of craftsmanship, now being slowly reclaimed by the green. It is a pocket of the past, held in a state of grace by the surrounding home, a quiet, forgotten room where the only activity is the slow growth of the ivy. The pergola is a skeleton of black metal, casting a series of long, thin shadows across the bed of gray pebbles. The hostas are massive, their wide, ribbed leaves spreading out like green fans, catching the first light of the morning. Each leaf is heavy and still, coated in a fine layer of dew that hasn't yet evaporated. The space is narrow, hemmed in by the side of the house and a high privacy screen of dark wood. The pebbles are smooth and uniform, a sea of gray that makes the green of the hostas appear even more vibrant. There is a mechanical precision to the layout, a modern take on the enclosed garden. The light is cool and blue-toned, filtering through the slats of the pergola. There is no movement in the leaves, no shifting of the shadows. The garden feels like a stage set where the performance has ended or is yet to begin. The enclosure is vertical and strong, creating a sense of being in a corridor of nature. The air is crisp and silent. Every element metal, the stone, the leafies rendered with a sharp, still clarity. It is a space of transition that has been forced into a destination, a narrow strip of land where the eye is guided by the lines of the metal and the soft curves of the plants. The glass railing is nearly invisible, a thin barrier that holds the patio against the edge of a deep green woods. The lounge chair is a low, sleek shape, its white cushion a bright spot in the gathering gloom of dusk. The light is fading fast, turning the leaves of the trees into a dark, solid mass that feels like a wall. The patio itself is small, a floating platform of stone and glass. There is no sound from the woods, no rustle of wind through the branches. The air is still and heavy with the coming night. The chair faces the trees, an invitation to watch the light disappear. The enclosure here is psychological. The glass provides safety while the trees provide a natural boundary. The white of the cushion reflects the last of the sky's light, glowing softly. It is a minimalist space, stripped of everything but the essentials. The world feels immense beyond the railing, yet the patio remains a tight, controlled environment. The silence is profound, a deep silence that seems to emanate from the trees themselves. Everything is static: the chair, the glass, the dark wall of the forest. It is a place for the end of the day, a small, elevated box of quietness where the only task is to witness the arrival of the dark. The raised bed is a small island of productivity in a tiny backyard. The wood of the planter is gray and silvered by the sun, its grain standing out in sharp relief. The rosemary and thyme grow in dense, fragrant clusters, their small leaves packed tightly together. They do not move. The sunlight is direct and warm, hitting the plants from above and creating deep, dark shadows within the foliage. Behind the planter, the wooden fence is a wall of vertical lines, closing off the view and focusing all attention on the herbs. There is a sense of domestic utility here, a garden that is part of the daily rhythm of the house. The soil in the bed is dark and rich, visible between the stems of the plants. The air is warm and still, likely filled with the scent of the herbs, though the scene is visually locked in a state of quiet growth. There are no tools left out, no signs of work, just the finished result of a small, well-tended space. The enclosure is tight, the fence just inches from the planter, creating a sense of a secret, functional corner. The light catches the tiny, needle-like leaves of the rosemary, making them sparkle. It is a miniature landscape of texture and light, a quiet celebration of the small and the useful. The courtyard is a deep square of shadow and stone, located in the heart of a modern home. The fire pit is a cold, dark bowl of steel, sitting precisely in the center of the paving. The 4 black chairs are arranged with geometric accuracy around it, their thin frames casting faint lines on the gray stone. The walls of the courtyard are high and windowless, finished in a dark gray plaster that seems to absorb the evening light. There is no sky visible, only the sense of a vast, cooling space above. The air is perfectly still. The fire pit is empty of flame, a silent monument to a social activity that isn't happening. The enclosure is absolute, a stone room open to the air but closed to the world. The silence is thick, held between the 4 walls like water in a tank. The stone floor is cool and clean, each joint between the pavers a perfect line. There is a feeling of intentionality in every detail, a rejection of the chaotic and the unorganized. It is a space for quiet reflection, for sitting in the dark and the still. The light is a uniform blue-gray, casting no highlights, only a steady, deepening gloom that reinforces the sense of isolation and peace. The path is a series of clean gray squares floating in a sea of white gravel. Each step is clearly defined, leading the eye toward the simple wooden door at the end. The boxwood shrubs are perfect spheres of green, spaced evenly along the edge, as still as if they were made of stone. The white wall and the white gravel reflect the morning light, creating a bright, high-key environment that feels clinical and calm. The garden is a narrow passage, an enclosure that serves as an entry to another part of the home. The door is closed, its wood grain the only warm element in a world of white and gray. There is no wind to move the gravel or stir the shrubs. The air is fresh and silent. The perspective is linear, drawing everything toward that single point of exit. The space is small, yet it feels balanced and whole. The enclosure is provided by the high white walls that frame the path, cutting out the rest of the world. It is a journey of only a few yards, but in this stillness, it feels like a significant transition. The light is soft and even, highlighting the texture of the concrete and the roundness of the boxwoods. It is a final, quiet statement on the beauty of the enclosed, residential space.